Hello, this is Quanisha Green, the founder of Black Women CEO and your host of the Black Women CEO podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping Black women to get paid to do what they love, own their time, and achieve financial freedom. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Quanisha Green. Welcome back, your host of the Black Women CEO podcast. And I am so excited. You probably hear me say this every single episode because I'm always excited with who we're hanging out with for the time. And today we have LaShanda Henry, CEO and founder of Sistasense. Hey, LaShanda.
Hey, how are you, my dear? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Everyone, this is such a privilege. I feel like, any guest that comes on, I'm always honored that they accepted my call to come onto the podcast or chose to even reach out to me. But particularly when I'm talking to my mentors, and I'm not talking about someone like I met last week. I'm talking about these women who have been in my life online, right, for years and years and years. And even if when I get to meet them in person, and then to have them come onto my platform and support it, my heart sings. And LaShanda is one of those people. LaShanda, I was sitting here before the episode, like, when exactly it was either like 2006 or 2007. And then I was like, was that too early or was it 2010? But that speaks to the fact that LaShanda has been online, using the online space to leverage her genius, monetize her genius, and then, really teach it to other sisters over a decade. So somewhere around there. Yeah. She'll probably give us the exact hours. And, when you're new to online and you're like, ooh, I'm spending money to learn something, LaShanda had these ebooks that was like $20 here, $7.99 here. And I started to learn what it really meant to do online marketing, what it really meant to build a business online. And I've had the privilege to be in LaShanda's masterminds and do private coaching with her. And even my website, the current look, the makeover was LaShanda giving my website a makeover. So I've been so happy and privileged to be in and out of the Sistasense community, to receive her mentorship and her love and just access to her brain power, which you will all hear the power of that. And her wonderful story of that, the journey that she has taken to even get here, particularly as a mom. So that is who LaShanda is to me. And I can go on and on and on with praise for LaShanda. But I would like her to tell you all who she bees, right? I always like our guests to not first start what they do, but to describe themselves beyond that. So LaShanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. It's like, I can never keep track of how long my relationships are with clients. I just love the fact that they're so deep and rooted. I've been online for 17 years now. And going back to 06, 07, 010, we've connected for so many years. I love it when I can tell people when they're like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to do this or do this now. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I just love to be able to tell people that because I'm rooted in this space. I'm able to stay consistent. And basically, I graduated from Columbia University back in 2002. Started my first website, Multiple Shades of You, online in 2000. I'm a techie girl, if you notice. And I just wanted www for me to be my wild, wild west. I wanted to figure out how I was going to take a piece of this digital pie and make it my own. So I started building my own websites, and then people were like, oh, that's fly. Could you do it for me? Then I started building other sites for people. And in the process, just kind of as I learned how to monetize and make money, Sistasense became a place where I helped other people make sense of making money too. So just kind of out of me working and building graphics projects and web projects and things of that nature, this amazing tribe of women have kind of like come behind me and beside me, and just, we've built and we've grown together, like yourself, Quanisha. Just always excited to work with other ladies and show them what I've learned as a techie woman, but also as a mommy. As you mentioned, I got pregnant with my son and he was born in 2006. And when I was pregnant, I said, you know what, I don't want to work 9 to 5 anymore. I want to work at home for myself. So I figured out how to make that happen. I left Brooklyn, came to beautiful North Carolina, and I've been here building my business and building this Sistasense tribe ever since.
I love it. Thank you for sharing who you are. And as you all can see, there's so many facets to LaShanda. And you said this kind of in this, but just to pull it out separately, how would you describe your mission? And can you tell us, specifically, what is the work that you do?
Sure. At my core, I am a web designer. I love graphics. I have a degree in computer science. So when people say, okay, what do you do? I say, oh, I build websites. And then, of course, my cheerleaders are like, okay, come on. You do like 5,000 things more than that. But that's who I am at my core, a web designer, but also a mentor to entrepreneurial women who come to me and say, I want to be you when I grow up, right? Even though I'm 37, sometimes they're 57. They're like, listen, I want to build a website. I want to teach online. I want to create information products, all those things I do. And at the same time as I do them, I mentor people how to do that as well. So I guess that's kind of me, the techie girl and the mentor simultaneously coming together. So I can just be of service to other people, especially other women, other women of color who are looking to find a real way, right? Not like an MLM, or, turnkey, or a real way to take the information that's inside of their head and the things that's inside of their heart and turn that into something they can monetize online. So, I've been blessed to be able to do that. And I hope to continue to share how other women can do that for as long as I can.
I love that you mentioned just now, the MLM and network marketing, and nothing against those industries. It's actually where I started out.
Not at all.
When I was doing educational consulting. And I remember doing all this work, trying to hit that first 3-month, those levels that you get bonuses for. And I did all this work. And then I finally got my commission check. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, you're a rising star. And then I was like, that's it? And I remember your teachings, and it was like around that time, and I was like, how can I do my own thing and then keep all the revenue, right? And that's how those companies are great. If you don't have an idea, but you want to be entrepreneurial and someone else has a product, but you're working on commission. But if you're like, wait a minute, I could do these same things for myself. And I remember like hearing you in my head, like, girl, you can package your own knowledge or something like that. And I knew that was a possibility. So it really speaks to the importance. And I wanted to say, in coming here, this is something I was thinking about in prepping for our interview, that you've been a real pioneer in general in the internet marketing space, but particularly for those who speak to women of color, right? Like you were the first woman in general that I heard talking about this new industry, right? And being out there and showing up. Like LaShanda is prolific. Like she'll see you get emails every day from LaShanda. And don't be on multiple lists. You're going to get a couple of, which is so great, but they're so informative and the resources. And so like you've really been a pioneer, right, in this. And so while people become entrepreneurs in various different ways, like I said, hearing that, wait, I could do this on my own. I have knowledge, right? I have things that people would be willing to buy or share, communities that I could build, right? That was a lot of those early lessons that I learned from you. And I know that for me, that's why it was so important. But why would you say your work in general is important for the, I guess, women or the population that you serve?
I'll say that for two reasons. When I created my first site, Multiple Shades of You Online, it was an e-zine for young women of color, because when I typed in Black women in Google at the time, and this was back in 98, 97, I was seeing a lot of XXX negative websites. And I said, this is not the image of Black women that I want and that I know. And so that motivated me to create a positive space for us. Of course, in the process of creating that space, I realized, wait, what the hell? There's so many other women, Black women, entrepreneurs, business owners of color out there. It's just that we're so dispersed and fragmented. It was hard to really see that, which is why, number one, I wanted to create a space for us. But then in the process, number two, I wanted to start to pool us together, right, and create a strong community. Also because at the time I was in Columbia, I was a college student, interning at IBM. And, I loved the experience. I loved what I learned. But when I looked around the corporate world, a lot of times there was no one who looked like me. Either there was not a female around, or there was not another Black person or Black female person of technology. And I was like, okay, listen, come on now. I'm not the only entrepreneurial, techie, web-driven sister out here. And I knew I wasn't, which is why I wanted to create a space for us. So, those things just kind of made me who I was. And I always believe in this significant statement of being the change that you seek. So rather than me seeking out other people to create what I wanted to see, I was like, listen, I'm just going to make it for myself. And I've been doing it ever since.
Yes, yes. Be the change that you seek. You saw a problem in representation and you didn't go and start writing letters, right? Saying like, we should have more of this. You created it. And that platform has grown into, millions of women in different ways, of Black business women online and Sistasense. And so, LaShanda is a very great example of, if you see a problem, be the solution. And you will see the fruits of that over time, right? Sometimes we have these big visions and you're like, is it going to really happen? But like LaShanda said, it's almost been 2 decades, right? She's been at this. And the success came within those first couple of years, but she built this animal so that she could say, I'm not going anywhere. And when she means that, she's not. Go follow LaShanda, right? So how did you come to own your role as an expert in CEO?
Wow. That's a profound question, to ask. I believe that it was twofold. Number one, I just showed up. I just basically was like, hey, I know technology, follow me, right? I mean, and to be honest with you, it's just as simple as that, because a lot of times people say, I want to do what you do, but what do I need to do first? Start making stuff. I start writing articles, start doing blog posts, start tweeting, start being a part of the conversation that you're looking at, and just kind of put yourself in there. And for me, number two, I was afraid of this at first, but I then put myself out there by actually going to events, which was kind of like really amazing, because I would go to places and people would go, I know you, it's Sistasense. And I'm like, huh? But, I had to baby steps, because I always tell people I'm a social introvert, so I'm a typer, not a talker. I had to transition from typing to doing video, from doing video to actually moving outside of my office space and going to events and shaking hands and meeting people. But that's how it started for me, positioning myself as far as being in control. And then on the flip side of that, taking control of my brand. Being in a space where I got a trademark lawyer, I got Sistasense trademarked. I made sure that whatever I needed to do to really invest into me and the business was there, getting clear about taxes and what I need to do as somebody who's self-employed, all the big things that are important as far as business building, taking yourself seriously, that plus putting myself out there simultaneously. Those were the two things that really kind of positioned me the way I wanted.
That's great. And I just want to pull out the taking yourself seriously, right? And showing up. But I think it's a different level when you start to say, wait, I'm building a business. One thing for me, I used to, sometimes, I don't know why, since I become an adult, like I don't like planning and forecasting. I'm like, what am I doing next month? And in your business, you can get away with that for some time. But when you start to really build a structure and have community and programs and promotions, you need to think a year out. And so recently I was like, well, what does 1 to 3 years look like? And that really caught me to even have that thought to say, wait a minute, this is a serious matter. Like this is something serious that I have to plan for and put resources to, in addition to all that investment I even did in myself so that I knew what to do. So, there is a mind shift, from the side hustle, right, to saying I'm a CEO and I'm building a business. So I love that, taking yourself seriously. You are such a creator, right? If I had to describe who you are, I'm like, she's an artist in a way. So how do you balance the creating as well as what you need to do to tend to the business to take it seriously?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I am definitely a creative being by nature. So if I could just sit and create all day, that would make me feel good. But I tell clients all the time, the real good is when you get that revenue into your bank account. So what you need to do is, as I put it, phase in your greatness. Everything happens in phases. If there are like 5 great ideas you come up with today, fabulous. But make sure that you finish the idea that you were working on yesterday. So for me, it's all about this kind of, number one, identifying the fact that I am a creative. So I have to resist the urge to stop what I'm doing. Oh, but this doesn't feel good anymore. I want to go do something else. I have to resist that urge or else nothing's ever going to get done. Just really being, diligent about prioritizing your priorities. Again, the real good versus the feel good. If you have a project or a product that needs to be released at a certain time. You talked about, looking ahead, right? You need to make sure that's finished before you go to that next feel good. You got to do what you're responsible for. And then, the other side piece of that is automation. I know that you said, well, sometimes, you send out all these emails or you may get 2-3 a day. I'm like, listen, if I can automate this process as much as possible, I will. So that some of these things are going out in the back end for me while I'm working on other things. And that kind of allows me to be creative in the sense that sometimes I don't have to feel like I'm on doing all these other things because the automation is working for me in the back end. So yeah, just kind of being conscious of what needs to be completed versus what needs to be automated, versus what feels really good or sounds really good, but listen, I'll do it later. And later might be next year. Honestly, later might be, it'll sit in my notebook until next year if that means I finish, complete, and completely master, and maximize what needs to be done right now. And that's a hard thing to do, but it's the important thing to do.
Be a finisher, people. You heard it directly from LaShanda. Be a finisher. So you mentioned this in describing the who you be, but what made you decide to start your business? I don't know if there's like one you can think about, like that foundational or that aha moment where you're like, I got to do this.
I don't know if it's the Gemini Twin in me, but everything is twofold. One, I always believe that I was just born to be an entrepreneur, right? I'm that kid that was like, oh, mommy, let's go to the flea market and sell stuff, right? And so it was just always in me. And even though my life took me on different paths, it always came back to being an entrepreneur. So that's kind of number one for me. Number two was getting pregnant and in that space, realizing that I didn't want to have to work and take care of my son. I wanted to be at home with him. I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to be in a position to avoid what I call the bubble guts when I had to go to my boss and be like, can I get time off for work? I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to control my day the right way by my definition. And so I left my job at the scariest point. I actually shared this in an audiobook that I'm working on. The scariest point of my pregnancy, I decided to resign. So in the middle of my pregnancy, I left my job. I was spending like $500 a month in insurance because I lost my insurance at that point. No job, no insurance, no security. At that point, everything was up in the air. But that for me was the defining moment that it was like now or never. So it may not be the perfect time that you decide when you say, I'm ready to take that leap and jump, but it was the best decision for me and my son, and I don't regret it.
I hear that. You put your back against the wall and you were like, all right, here we go. And some of us need that. We need that. Some of it's like a high, we may have a high risk tolerance, but I think when we're like, okay, this is it. Like there's no backup bridge or anything like that. I got to go. Or you can always know, maybe you can get a job. But if you're like committed to it, some of us need that, our back against the wall, and we're going for it. And some people need to, build along the way while they still have, in their 9 to 5. So, you got to know your risk tolerance. But I definitely understand when you're like, okay, I'm doing this, is now or never, right? Vulnerable moment, right? That you were like, I'm going to do this. And so what were some of the earliest challenges that you faced in making that decision, and how did you overcome them?
I would have to say going against what is stereotypical, meaning that, you think geeky nerd, you've got an image in your head. Maybe you got I don't want to be stereotypical, but you know what you might be thinking of. It certainly isn't me, right? So, creating a space where I was simultaneously having these websites and all this tech stuff for Black people, for Black women, and in a space where, by the way, this was pre-blogging, this was pre-app. So I didn't even know what an app was a few years ago because all of this stuff is new, right? This was me even before then. So my biggest challenge was not just living the dream and creating all this technology and this web stuff, but then having to re-educate other Black folks around me like, hey, this is available to you. You can do this too. And so whereas other people, in their cultural whatevers, it's just kind of natural for them to create and share information and do technology or be a XYZ kind of a male and whatever. for me as both a female and female of color, I was simultaneously trying to figure out what I was doing, navigate, create, and market to people who didn't even know the kind of stuff that I was creating was in existence for them. I mean, honestly, now you can, drop a hat, throw a penny, whatever, and hit somebody who's a coach or a mentor or a web designer or whatever who's doing what I'm doing. But when I started, it was like little to nothing.
Yeah, and it's like teaching people who don't, like, you at least have a technical background, but then people who don't have any of that. And that's one of the things I really love is that anytime people need help with technology or really understanding concepts, I say go to Sistasense, because you break it down in such a way that you're just like, oh, this is so simple. Like, why did I ever think it was difficult? You're showing even like on the screen live. Come on, y'all. We're going to walk through how you get your blog post up. And it was just like, wow, I didn't know it could be this simple. So that's one thing I always love. Like, if you need help with something, go to LaShanda. She'll have worksheets, a tutorial, templates, like all together for you.
You got to break it on down.
Break it down. So there's no excuse for anybody. She broke it down for you.
Absolutely not. No excuses.
Yeah. So how have you integrated work, business, life, self-care, and family, all these facets that you navigate?
I love that question. It always reminds me of listening to Lisa Price, the creator of Carol's Daughters, once when I was at a Black Enterprise event and they asked her about balance. And she said, you know what? I do everything that I do and just say, don't drop the baby. She's like, some days I'm a perfect business owner. Some days I'm a perfect mommy. But I mean, balance is a nuance that is tricky. At the end of the day, I try to, from a practical perspective, number one, I try to identify specific days where I do just either I'm all business or I'm all mommy. That's number one. Number two, I strategically share my number. Like my number is like Fort Knox. So there is a process that I have for people to communicate with me because I don't want my phone always ringing. And I love my clients, but I need to be able to set boundaries. And sometimes when you're, so anxious to get that client, you give them your number and all of a sudden, 11 o'clock at midnight, they're like, so did you finish? It's like, okay, wait, hold up. No. So creating systems in place where I can have those boundaries between myself and clients. And then, like I said, there are just some days where if I need to be in front of the computer for 18 hours, literally, like sun up, sun down, I've created a dynamic in my house where like my family, my boys, we understand that. So, my hubby and my son, they'll listen to know, is mom on the phone or is she doing a webinar, right? My hubby, he's so amazing. He'll knock in and he'll like leave dinner right beside me because he's know I'm doing like a mastermind webinar or something. So just creating a space where my family understands the dynamic, creating times when I know like, okay, if I'm off for 3-4 days, just being with the family, then I'm just doing that. And then just kind of, navigating. When it comes to self-care, that's a whole other story. I'm still working on that because I am human. And we all have areas that we struggle with. I'm a diabetic, and so that's certainly one of them for me. And I like my butt to be in this chair more often than not. So getting up and actually doing things and moving, definitely a challenge. When I was in New York, I walked everywhere. I'm in North Carolina. I drive everywhere. Right. But like I said, we're humans. And so you just have to be conscious of doing what Lisa said, do what you can. Don't drop the baby. Do the best that you can. Give yourself self-love and compassion when you don't do things perfectly, because again, you're only human. Just try to grow. Grow with it. That's all I can say. A long way of saying it, but that's certainly how I can describe it.
No, that's great. These different, the examples that you shared. And I love Lisa's quote, or, that you gave, because it made me think about, at the end of the day, what is the least thing I need to make sure is taken care of? And that is keep the baby alive, like keep the children.
Exactly, right?
Are they nourished? Are they fed?
Make sure the baby's taken care of.
Right. Did they get some emotional support today? And that's a win. You just made me think, like, wait, if I kept my child alive, one, I kept him alive so far for 5 years, the other one's 1. I'm like, that is an accomplishment. And I think sometimes we overlook we overlook those little wins. Well, it's actually a big win in somebody's life, right? But we overlook those wins, and we're like, well, I didn't get to write my marketing emails today, or I didn't get to do this. But it's like, look, did I keep the baby alive, right? And if you don't have Twitter, it could be something else. Like, did I take a shower today? Like, whatever is that whatever is that priority, like at the very least, if I did this, it was a good day.
Listen, I am totally for that, because I feel that, especially as creatives or highly driven people, when I work with clients, more often than not, I hear, I don't feel like I'm doing what I need to do. I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. I feel like I'm behind. And for me, I'm going to be honest with you. If I said, at the end of the day, I'll be like, okay, well, LaShanda, good job. You sent out one email. You finished this for that web client. Now you're going to take a nap and watch Netflix for 2 hours. Great. That's it. I mean, it's all about how you see it. If you look at it from the perspective of I didn't get enough done versus I did everything that I could possibly do, I'm going to take a nap and then rejuvenate and then go back and try, whatever else I can finish. But if you constantly are self-abusing yourself by saying, I'm not doing enough, I'm not finished, you're always going to find yourself in a space of lack and frustration.
I love that you called it what it is. It is self-abuse. And we often talk to ourselves in ways we wouldn't talk to somebody else. High criticism, and it is abuse. Some of it is that emotional abuse towards yourself.
Yes.
So I love that to shift that perspective, to say, like, to congratulate yourself, right? That gratitude even for what you have done, and honoring and praising yourself, that many of us need on this walk. Because often we're alone when we're doing entrepreneurial stuff. You don't have, or like school, when you get a grade, you're like, oh, this is what my effort equaled. No, we have to do those things for ourselves and build that in. And that's a part of our self-care. So I'm glad that came out. And so how do you go about those setting goals and executing and staying focused?
There are a few things that I personally like to do. One of them is at the beginning of the year, or even like very close to the ending of the year, set focus words that I say, okay, this is my focus. So for me this year, I have 3 R's: reach, revenue, and routines. Number one, working on my reach, specifically on different platforms. My focus platform this year is Instagram, because it's kicking my butt. Number two, revenue. I'm always about taking a look at how much I made the year before and working on either making that consistent or growing that. And then number three, routines. At the end of the day, it's not about, let me find that perfect time to make it happen. It's about systematically carving out time every day, every week, every month to make little wins happen for yourself. So for me, that's a big thing. Those focus words, number one. And number two, really just working on the little routines that make a big difference. So perfect example of that. I'm going to be honest, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've got so many followers, hundreds, thousands, I don't know at this point. I am such an organic growth kind of a person, which is why I love people coming to me and I'm like, I can talk to you from the perspective of having a small list because I focus on organic growth. And I'll say, listen, if you got a video and maybe just a few people saw it, right? Don't look at that other person and go, oh, they got 10,000 views on that one video. If you create 10 videos and each of those videos get 100 views, that's 1,000 views for you. So find a way to work with what you have and be consistent, even with small numbers, other than kind of looking outward. So those are some things that really help me. Number one, identifying focus words. Number two, those 3 R's, reach, revenue, routine, really focus on routines. And number three, really just digging into what you can realistically do and being okay with that. Because again, I've been doing this for a long time, and there are people who come out after me and then it just looks like they're like a one-hit wonder. Like, what happened? 1 year, 2 years, they're already like surpassing whatever. But I am okay with where I am, and I have to remind myself that you're established, you're past your 6 figures, you bought your home, you bless God, you're watching your son, you've got your hubby, you've got your perfect person, you're good. So looking within and focusing on that, right? I always tell clients, it's not about reaching everybody. It's about reaching the right body. So when I catch myself with that green eye monster and I'm like, oh, but such and such as X, Y, Z views or whatever, I'm like, listen, you just spent 2 hours talking to a client who then sent you an email and said, you changed my life. And I was in tears and I broke down and I'm excited. It's not about reaching everybody. It's about reaching the right body. And then I'll come back to myself and go, You're doing exactly what you need to be doing right now. You're reaching exactly who you need to be reaching right now. So those are internal things and that you've got to check and that you have to kind of monitor so that you are consistently self-motivated to move forward. Nobody else is going to do this for you. When the naysayers say something negative or when you say something negative to yourself and you fall back and stop, you've got to have something that's going to really just kind of push you to get back up, right? And, you know, dry those tears and keep going. So, yeah, I guess when it comes to being consistent and regimen, those are some of the practices that really dig in and dig deep for me.
I love that, especially the list or the reach question. Like so many of us start our businesses sometimes because we are looking more for influence and impact, and sometimes not income. So we don't put the right things in place to generate revenue. But one thing, and this might have come from your teaching, and I didn't even think about it. Like I sometimes tell people, you don't need a big list, you need the right list. Right.
Yeah.
I too, like sometimes having 1,000 people actively, even though I've collected more emails than that, but like actively on the list to, generate the revenue that I needed. And I didn't tell you this big one, you might have saw on Facebook. So after 2 years kind of being actively in business outside of leads, I finally hit the 100K mark, right? It was like,
congrats.
Total revenue since I've been full time at this over the last few years was 100K. Of course, I would like to do it in 1 year, but I just like, even what you said of like, how are you reaching the right people and engaging them? And you will see the result, which is often revenue, but even those emails that you get from people, right? If we keep that focus, we'll keep going instead of the comparison.
Yes.
I call it comparisonitis. When we keep looking, and there was this really great quote that like, I don't know the color of your grass because I'm focusing on mine. Like, I don't know how green your grass is. Like, it could be weeds.
There you go.
Forest.
Absolutely.
I'm focused over here. So I love that you said focus on your stuff. We all have a unique walk, right? And we can still have an impact, even if say we don't have the sizes of like some of the gurus, right? Or the people that we see are kind of prominent in our field.
There you go. That's the key. I mean, I love the fact that people will always come to me and say, LaShanda, you're an OG, you're a pioneer because you've been doing this for such a long time. And there's so much that comes with that. But at the same time, I sometimes will fall into my own little emotional mindset because then you've got all these new shiny objects that are out there and they're like, well, I'm following so-and-so because they're the new hot, da-da-da. And I'm like, but I'm still here. Right? I mean, as a person, we all are going to go through that. And then I have these badass moments when everybody's like, oh my God, LaShanda, I need you for this and this and this and this and this. Like my inbox is crazy this weekend. And so it's like you at the end of the day, I share all of that because, yeah, I do have close to 2 decades on that badge of honor. But at the same time, I am still human. So there are things that are going to challenge me or get in my head as I move forward. And I just want that to be such a big part of this conversation because it doesn't matter what level you are at as an entrepreneur. At every level, we're going to face obstacles and opposition, whether that's internal or external, but you just have to keep going. There's my favorite quote, the only way you can fail is if you quit. And so that's the key for me. You succeed one way or another, whether you believe it or not, you succeed just by being consistent and you just keep going.
Yes, that's one big thing I've learned for you. Be consistent. And you live that, you walk that talk. So thank you. So as we move into the closing, I'm going to ask you for some advice for our listeners. And you shared so much wisdom. But
I'm like, more?
She's like, what you want, more, Cornisha? So what is one piece of, you had to pull out many of the things that you said. What is one piece of wisdom you would share with the woman who is frustrated building her business and desires to become a rockstar CEO? Or another way to think about this question is, what do you wish someone told you when you started this journey?
Wow, that's a hard one. How to handle frustration? What do I wish somebody told me? Well, first and foremost, I wish somebody told me that I was a freaking badass when I started.
Love it.
Like, if I had somebody in my ear like, girl, you the shit, you a badass. What are you talking about? I would have done things differently. I went through years where I was anxious about charging and, I'm a designer. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, it's 10,000, it's 5,000, whatever. Back in the day, I was like, oh my God, it's $100. oh my God, is that too much? Like if I could have just kind of channeled my Sasha Fierce now with my, intimidated me then, and have somebody say, you are a badass from the beginning, that would have been great. But everything is a life lesson. So I guess I can't change that. Know that you are a badass and be in a space where you do your best to, like I think I said at the very beginning, to just share your message and talk to people and let them know what's in your mind, even if it's 2 or 3 people watching. Do that and do it consistently. And I believe that things just kind of have a way of kind of flowering and opening themselves up. But of course, in the process of being consistent, you also have to get out of your comfort level. So I was uncomfortable charging, then I changed that. I was uncomfortable networking, and I changed that. I hated video. Now I'm doing that stuff like every damn day. So you do have to break away from those things that make you uncomfortable. Your next level begins where your comfort level ends. It's just that simple. So know that you're a badass and know that your next level is right there for you, so long as you're willing to get uncomfortable, fail fast, and do the work.
Yeah, I heard that. Your next level begins where your comfort level ends, and the importance of standing in your worth, right? And sharing that wisdom consistently. So I'm going to write that on a post-it. You are a bad. I don't know if now I have to say this episode has profanity in it or not. But yeah,
we grown folks. We grown folks right here. You want your startup to grow up, you got to say some grown folks things sometimes. That's all that is.
We grown women. Right. So, but at the core of that, I just heard, remember who you are. And I love you talked about the Sasha Fierce. One thing I've been recommending to my clients is sometimes we have to put on that persona. And I come from a performing background with dance that, you do sometimes have an alter ego, right? And you're pushing past the butterflies and you got to be in that audience in front of hundreds of people. So it's like, who is your alter ego, right? Who is your Sasha Fierce that you may need to lean on, right? And it's not saying that you're fake, but it's that part of you that's just confident and you don't care what nobody says, and you're going to go out there, have those conversations and show your expertise. Sometimes we got to tap into this other part of ourselves, right? And if Beyonce could do it, why not us? We're just badass.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So definitely think about some of these tips as you all go forward if you're feeling that discomfort and that frustration. So thank you for that, LaShanda. And I think you shared it, but what's your personal mantra, a motto or saying or quote that you live by?
Just do it. At the end of the day, whether you're scared or not, whether you got support or financial, whatever, just do it. Because you're going to end up doing it anyway. You just don't want a year from now, you wish that you started today because you procrastinated. So just whatever it is that you're thinking about, just do it.
Just do it. And what's the number one success strategy or tip you would give to women who are in the early phases of building a business?
Make sure that you got your back end right and tight. Because at the end of the day, as a web designer, I work with clients who are so excited about creating a website. And then real talk, a lot of times those people are not ready for what they're creating, right? So, it's interesting because, so for example, when we worked together, you had your stuff together. You said, okay, listen, I'm doing consulting, so I need my questionnaire, LaShanda. You were ready to receive because you're working, right? Then there are other people who like, yeah, girl, I'm ready to do this thing, but I'm not ready to put the site up yet. So just put like 2 blog posts and then just put my picture up. They're not ready to receive. So if you are going to do this and you're in the starting phase, make sure that your back end is right. You want coaching people, make sure your intake form is ready. You want people to sign up for your program, make sure you know how much the program costs. You got the back end ready when they say they signed up, you're ready to teach them. So that stuff might not look as fun to do because you want to take them pictures and figure out that logo, but it doesn't make any sense to create an empty site or to create a business with no foundation. You want it to be like, if people step on your site and they see your brand online, they're like, damn, how come I didn't know her yesterday? Doesn't matter that you're a new kid on the block. You look established. So focus on the stuff in the back end that's the real good, not just the fun, like aesthetic stuff that you feel good about in the front end.
And just for some of our ladies who may be real new to that term, can you just really clearly define what do you mean by back end? I think it was ways you can assume what it meant from what you said, but if you can just clearly state that.
Sure. When I talk about the back end, I mean, okay, so front end, physical aesthetics, your pictures, your logo, okay, go to xyz.com. Back end, I mean, if you want forms, you've got intake forms. If you have a package, you have an e-commerce website. If you want people to opt into your website, sometimes clients, they spend like 5 months to give me one opt-in, and then there's no sales funnel, there's no sequence, so that when the person gets your opt-in, you're selling them something either 2 or 3 or 4 days later. There's got to be stuff, systems, funnels, structure in the back of your business to handle the kind of business you are ready to receive. Because if it looks great in the front, but there's nothing behind it, you have no packages ready, you've got no sign up forms. There's nothing really there. You just want it to look like you're ready, but you're not. Mm-hmm. You're not actually going to receive anything. And then when opportunities do arise, you're kind of finding yourself scrambling to figure out, well, how much should I charge? Or, oh my God, what do I say? Because you ain't ready for it. And I guess that's, for me, that's the back end, the meat of it, making sure that whatever people see that looks fabulous on the front, you have everything you need handled on the back as an entrepreneur.
I love that you said ready to receive and having these systems and structures in place, right? This is that. And that's why I said some people don't focus on the income. This is the revenue generating processes that LaShanda, I know that came out, LaShanda is speaking to, right? So you can say impact and influence could be, oh, my Instagram is on and popping, or I look good on the website when you go to www.so-and-so. But there was, I forgot who it was. This person was a story where they were featured on Oprah, right? So 1 million person platform, right? But they had they didn't have a sign-in form on their website. So here they got all this exposure, but they had no way to capture it. And they were like, I learned then to never do that again. It was a missed opportunity, right? They had no way to share a resource or to get people's emails, right, who are interested in learning more about what they did. So that's sort of basically what LaShanda is saying, right? You may be showing up on Twitter all the time and all this, maybe you have 1,000 people, but if you have no system for capturing them and then getting them on product dirty, where they eventually, become a customer or a client, you don't have your back end in order. Right. So that
includes products. Some people don't even have a product to sell, but they've been on social media and building a following without anything actually to sell, which can hurt you as well. Especially a lot of times, side note, women will say to me, well, I just kind of want to build up and then the products will come later. But then you're training everybody to consume you for free. Mm. And then they're going to get the funky face when 2 years later, now you're really ready to sell them. They're never going to buy because you didn't have that kind of experience that way.
Look at that. How dare you? You're like, wait a minute.
Right. They get the funky face. And that's not their fault. It's yours because you have to cultivate that kind of experience from the very beginning. You've got to be ready to be in a space where you just kind of share and showcase socially for free, but then you also have monetized as well. So I could go on and on and on.
I would say this is going into teaching because I was like, LaShanda, this is what LaShanda does, everybody. So LaShanda, how can people connect with you, get some of this good teaching about putting their back ends in place? It's like, back that thing up, right? Sorry, I had to go. So how can learn these
that's why
you're talking about?
That's why we have so much fun together. That's all that is. Sistasense, Sistasense.com. Sistasense, you'll find essentially my 3 primary services, which is my web design services, my clarity calls, so you can talk to me one-on-one, and the mastermind, because I believe that the success of your business depends on the company that you keep. I have a group of amazing women like Juanisha around me consistently so that we can grow, learn, and work on this thing called online entrepreneurship together. So everything is on Sistasense. Of course, there's a lot. So if you can't find something, you can always say, LaShanda, point me in the right direction. But that's my home base, and that's where everything I do is.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll make sure the link of Sistasense.com is in the show notes so that you can just click and head over to Sistasense Land with LaShanda. Well, LaShanda, thank you so much. So enjoyable. And I'm so glad I got to connect you with this Black woman CEO community. All right, everyone. Well, we will see you next time, and thank you for joining in. And remember, you can go to blackwomenceopodcast.com directly for today's show notes and other resources, and listen to the other interviews from our Black women CEO experts. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And for more Black Women CEO wisdom and expert tips, please visit blackwomanceo.com. So this is your host, Quanisha Green, signing off. Until next time, remember, power is the ability to create your reality.